John, in your book, You Inc., you say that anyone can succeed in real estate. Even in this environment, do you think someone can succeed?
I think so, Kevin. I think if you take the right approach, these are the best times of all, because a lot of your competitors drop off. A lot of people start fearing the economy and start focusing on things that are sort of, I think, irrelevant to them. Like, what did the Dow Jones do last night? What's happening? What's the headline in the newspapers? So I think these are actually better times than ever, albeit we're probably at the end of the GFC, to be honest, but I think right through the GFC, we've had an outstanding opportunity for people to grow their businesses, probably better than any other time in history. Mindset's
pretty important, isn't it? Do you think blocking out a lot of those external influences that really we can do nothing about anyway is a good way to go?
Yeah, mindsets is the key thing, positive attitude. So for whether you're an entrepreneur, a sales agent or a support person, your number one thing is to stay positive and just keep your mindset on the things that you can control. So my view is I actually block out all media that has a negative potential impact on me. I focus on things where I can control the input. I get a lot of information from Twitter, for example, because I subscribe to people. So my view is you've got to be very careful about what you let into your head. You watch the 6 o'clock news tonight, 30 stories, 29 negative stories. So you've got to ask yourself, is that the right way to condition your mind to the end of the day before you go to sleep? I think there are better ways.
John, what's your definition of success?
I think success is, it's got to be measured. I think most people today, Kevin, are better at it in a balanced fashion. So I think it's what makes you feel happy and delighted and do you feel grows you? And if you're clear about that, and having a successful business, I mean, I'm all for success and the prosperity and the financial freedom it can bring people. I think that's real and that's important. It's certainly not the most important. I think, what's critical is health, what's critical is relationships, what's critical is a sense of contribution and connection. What's critical is making a difference. Now, a business can help you do all of those things, but you've got to be clear about what are the things that you really want to deliver in your life.
I often wonder, I walk into an office where someone's doing extremely well and someone sitting beside them, same opportunities, is really struggling. Why is that?
Well, I think, as we said before, it comes down to the individual and the individual's mindset. There's only two things that separate people, I think, two major things. One is their skill and one is their attitude. We often call it skill and will. So 0 to 10, what's your skill level? 0 to 10, what's your attitude level? You'll find the same person, the fact that they're sitting in the same brand, often working the same community with the same opportunities, and yet someone's bringing in $1 million in revenue for the business and someone's bringing in 100,000. If you were to interview them, the 100,000 person will start with excuses. Well, it's GFC, Kevin, haven't you heard about it? This is really tough, and I've got a small community, and I've just started in real estate. They'll have this proliferation of excuses as to why they're not. If you can get a chance to speak to the $1 million earner, but it's probably going to be hard because they're going to be focused and undistracted. But they're going to tell you, well, like a great opportunity, and I love helping people, and I work hard, and I've got a great organisation, I've got a great plan, I've got a great team, and I've developed my skills, and I'm ongoing learning, and every single day I'm filling my mind with positive. They're going to have a much better plan. So number one is get rid of your excuses. If you're not performing at a level that you know you could be or you should be, just drop the excuses and then start doing what the successful people are doing.
John, what suggestions would you have for someone who's in a slump? How can they get out of that?
Well, first thing, is remove negative influences. That can be people, that can be information, that can be input, that can be a whole range of things. So second thing is appreciate what we have. I mean, here we are living in the lucky country in what I think are fabulous times with more technology and more tools and the internet and things available to us than ever before to help us grow our business, grow ourselves. I mean, there used to be a time where you had to be wealthy to be well educated. Now you've just got to have an internet connection. And you can get onto YouTube and you get on the internet and you can find any answer and interviews with famous people. So be appreciative, inspire yourself. I read quotes every day. I have apps on my phone that have little daily quotes. So it's do things that make you feel good, because I often wake up, not often, but occasionally I'll wake up and I've had a bad day yesterday and maybe my subconscious was working on overnight and I'm feeling a bit flat in the morning, and then I'll go onto Twitter and there'll be someone that there'll be a quote there that talks about, the importance of, moving through challenges and getting to the other side and making you a better person. And that resets it in my mind, or shifts my paradigm back to where it should be. So I think you've got to inspire yourself. And the last one is not only remove negative people from your life, but include positive people. And sometimes you can do it face to face, occasionally if you know some people around you. Sometimes you can do it through things like your programs, audio programs, video programs, that are bringing you in touch with people. A lot of the people that I guess have in some ways mentored me, I've never met. but I've watched them. Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs example. I've watched video after video, I've read book after book, even though I never had the pleasure of meeting him. His philosophies were accessible to me. And I think that's really important. The philosophy and the teachings of great people are accessible to all of us.
John, I've heard you talk about an inbuilt success thermostat. What does that really mean? What does it mean to you?
So in essence, the success thermostat for me is you can achieve anything you want if you set your mind to it and you believe it. The problem is most people set something which is eminently achievable and it's not a great stretch because it's easy and because they, without stretching their belief system too much, they say, well, I can do 2 sales a month, no problem. Well, the problem is what if you could do 12 sales a month, but you never gave yourself the opportunity? So my question is, are you stretching yourself enough? Are you expecting enough? Because you will probably deliver what you set your subconscious as an expectation, not much more. So I'm all for, now, I'm not saying stretch it to a point where it's unbelievable for you. Can I run the 100 metres in 9 seconds? No, I can't. I don't believe that's a possibility. Could I be the world's best real estate salesperson or office? Yeah, I think I can. So, you've got to actually be able to connect with that. The problem is a lot of people have really they've downtraded there and they've shortchanged themselves so much on their goals. It's like turn up and you can hit it. That's not exciting for me. No wonder people burn out.
John, someone watching this right now, what steps can they take to improve their outcomes? What can they do right now?
Well, I think reality check of where you are and own your current reality. So don't say you're only doing 2 sales a month because the GFC. Just say you're only doing 2 sales a month because that's actually what you're doing in terms of your strategy, your energy, your skill level. So if you want to go to that next level, what are you going to do? Are you going to go and buy yourself a new suit, a new outfit? Are you going to get a business coach? Are you going to start joining the gym? Are you going to read a book a day? Are you going to start yoga or meditation? Are you going to start shadowing a great agent? What are the things? So build yourself a plan that works for you. Maybe you get to the office a half hour earlier and work a half hour later. Anything, most people out there, it's not, Kevin, the matter of can you do it? It's knowing what to do and then just doing it. Because all that stuff, I've just mentioned those things. If you started doing those tomorrow, you'd triple your sales in the next 12 months if you did them every day. But it's a matter of starting them.
Welcome to our auction update. Kevin Brogan in just a moment will tell us that some really good news. Sydney auction results appear to be about the best in over a year, and Melbourne is showing a lot of consistency with results. More detail from Kevin Brogan in just a moment.
Did you know you can save up to 70% on your staff costs by outsourcing the low-value, repeatable tasks so your team can focus on growing your business? Beepo is an outsourcing provider focused on the real estate industry. With an English-speaking, tertiary qualified and fully trained team in the Philippines, Beepo will give your business the boost it needs to start growing and returning value to you. For more information, visit beepo.com.au.
Kevin, what a great result. Kevin Brogan, of course, from CoreLogic, gives us these results every week. Kevin, a great result out of Sydney. Let's bring those preliminary numbers up and have a look. Almost 75%.
Yeah, look, as you said, I mean, that's the best we've seen for a year, and it's a really big uplift over last week where we saw the final clearance rate drop below 60%. But it really does underline that, when we look at auction results, we do see them almost in real time as a barometer of the market, but we also need to take into account the longer term trends. That the holiday weekend actually really did have a bit of an impact on the volatility of those numbers.
Indeed it did, and it's good to see it bouncing back. Melbourne, I think in your report you're saying that it's fairly consistent, those results over the last 3 or 4 weeks. That's a good sign too.
Oh, look, it certainly is. I mean, the market softening in Melbourne started a little bit later than Sydney and then played catch up for a while. But to see for the last month, as you say, a fairly solid clearance rate in the sort of mid-60s is really quite encouraging.
Indeed it is. Brisbane, still 37%. Not spectacular, but an improvement on last week.
I was going to say I'll take that over 22.5. So
yep.
That is a bit of an improvement, and 37 in Brisbane is towards the upper end of the range that we've seen in this year.
Fair enough. Adelaide, 54%. Nice and consistent out of Adelaide as well.
Absolutely. Look, I think we often use the word steady to describe the market in Adelaide, and for a long time when the eastern state markets were going really strongly, steady was almost a denigration of the market. But in recent times, steady has actually come back into vogue. Look, we're hoping that in Adelaide, some of these announcements we've seen in relation to market confidence will work their way through into our market. Maybe a little bit slower as some of those things that cause softening in the other markets in the eastern states. Maybe Adelaide will take just a little longer to react.
Very low numbers in Perth and Canberra, but reasonable results as well. 33% out of Perth and 47% out of Canberra.
Yeah, look, Canberra has weakened just recently. I mean, for the first quarter of this year, it was performing ahead of Sydney. No real surprise out of Perth. The market there, ever since the mining investment boom ended, the market there has suffered some significant softening. So 33% is actually fairly usual for Perth off low numbers.
So there you go, 66.4%, the weighted average. Preliminary, that's likely to drop a bit, as Kevin has acknowledged in the past, as we get more final results during the week. That's off 1,487 auctions. Kevin, no real surprise. We see some consistency when we look at houses and units. We'll bring that graphic up now. 66.3% houses and 66.5% units. There were some time, I think it might have been last week, when there was quite a difference between the two.
Yeah, look, last week on lower numbers, there was that volatility issue, as I say, that we need to take into account. I mean, we have seen a pattern in perhaps in Sydney, sometimes the units actually travelling quite well compared to the houses. And, clearly, even though the market has softened for the last 15 months, affordability is still a constraint for many people looking to participate in the market.
Well, we're going to take you on a tour of the top sales in all the cap cities in just a moment. Before we do, let's have a look at the Sydney sub-region results. And once again, we've got to highlight the fact that there were some outstanding results out of Sydney, which helped a lot in that weighted average as well. 81%, 87%. They're big numbers. Yeah. 94% out of Ryde.
94.7. Yeah, in Ryde. Yeah. So look, some of those markets, and I mean North Sydney and Hornsby, that we might come back to in our discussions. I mean, look, that market has been characterised historically by very family or sought after family homes for owner occupation. So while we've seen the softening of the market across the whole of Sydney, there are pockets where we've actually seen fairly stable market, and North Sydney and Hornsby has actually been demonstrating some reasonably strong clearance rates. Not as strong as this, but when other markets had softened or other sub-regions had softened, they kept going at a reasonable rate.
Even in a southwest, I like to look at the regions that give us a similar result to the weighted average. It's always a good indication, and very encouraging that the biggest numbers coming out of North Sydney and Hornsby with that success rate around about the weighted average.
Oh, absolutely. So North Sydney and Hornsby has not only been performing quite well in terms of clearance rates, but the volume of auctions that have continued through that market. I mean, they are down on previous years, but nonetheless, it is still a fairly busy market. Not quite the busiest this week, but sort of right up there.
And our top sale out of Sydney is in Pymble, Kevin. Palatial character residence, this one, in really what is Pymble's dress circle location. I'll get you to give us a rundown on the Pymble area, but 62 Pymble Avenue, 5,900,000. Di Jones and Tim Fraser selling this one. Tim Fraser from Di Jones, I should say. 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom, 2-car on a very large 2,510 square metre lot.
Oh, absolutely, with tennis court and pool.
Yeah.
This is one of those homes in one of those areas which has perhaps weathered the storm a little better than some other areas. If we look at the median price in Pymble, it's actually sitting at about 2.4 million. So that gives you an idea of the type of suburb we're talking about, and that has come down from the peak, but compared to the sort of double-digit reductions in prices we've seen across Sydney, in the low single digits in Pymble. This property, I think, is interesting to see, last sold almost 10 years ago to the day for 3.6 million. So that gives you a sort of indication of the capital gain over 10 years.
Yeah, I imagine that the owners there were probably hoping for 6 million. When you get to 5,900,000, you're almost there. It's probably only a couple of bids away. Yeah.
Yeah, very close.
Indeed. So congratulations to Tim Fraser on selling that one. Have a look at the Melbourne sub-regions now. Over to you, Kevin, for some observations there.
Yeah, look, I mean, again, we've commented previously about how they are more similar to each other and more more consistent with each other. But I mean, the Outer East at 80% it's been a long time since we've seen a sub-region of Melbourne hit 80%, and Northwest, not far behind at 73.6%. Volumes really quite significantly down on last year overall, but I think that may feed into some of these increases in clearance rates. We've spoken about confidence returning to the market, and so far in auctions we've really only seen that on the demand side. These auctions were still listed for auction prior to the election result being known. So we've got buyers out there feeling more confident and still a restricted supply of property to auction.
Speaking about that too, we're probably likely to see the auction properties listed after the election starting to come through now. We might see a lift in numbers from this weekend, do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, look, I think in the first week our preliminary figures will have more in the morning, but they are looking as if there's a bit of an increase, but it is only a slight uplift. I think, again, I think we probably just need to be a little bit patient to see how the market reacts, given that we are in the winter season, which traditionally does see volumes dropping off.
Yes, because people don't generally wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to list my house today. They normally go through a bit of a process of preparing it as well.
Absolutely. And some people clearly would have been getting ready and maybe waiting for the result of the auction before listing. So certainly they may make a move.
Top sale out of Melbourne is a Grand Victorian. Ideal for a large family, this one, because it's got 7 bedrooms. It sold for under the hammer on the weekend for $2,560,000. Located at 18 Park Street in St Kilda West. Wilson agents, Graham Wilson and Paul Manchek, selling this one, as I said, 7 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 car. Yeah, big home, this one, Kevin.
Oh, look, it's a big home, but it's a bit of a contrast to the Pymble one. The land area is very long and narrow, 183 square metres. The property is sandwiched between the beach in St Kilda West and Albert Park, so it's in a really good location, stone's throw from the Melbourne CBD. Median house price there about 1.8 million. We've had only about 20 sales in that suburb this year, pretty tightly held.
Okay, we'll take you to the other top sales around the country too that have been all supplied to us from the statistics coming from CoreLogic. I just want to tell you about something we'll do towards the end of the show too. If you've ever wanted to own a milk bar or own a little corner store, one sold this last weekend, and we'll tell you all about it, and we'll take you inside that one as well. But firstly, Kevin, let's have a look at the top Brisbane sale. Outstanding city views on this one. This one is in Camp Hill. Once again, hill implies that it is high, and it is. It looks back toward the city. $1,725,000. Sold by Place, James Curtin and Chris Dixon. 3-bedroom, 2-bar, 3-car. Fairly traditional sort of home, this one, on 810 square metres, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a post-war brick home. I think the critical thing here, as you mentioned, is the fact that it is elevated and has views. A lot of the properties around are on the 405, so we're talking 16 perch blocks. So the opportunity here, I think, is for development. That's a strong price at 1.7 million. But when you have a look at the houses around this property, particularly on the opposite side of the road, you see people have taken advantage by building 2 stories, balconies, taking account of the views. And I think that's the driver for value on this one.
Yeah, I think this is probably 2 lots as well. And when you consider 1,700,000, you're really looking at about $800,000 if you take the house off, which you'd be able to do, and put 2 houses on there. So that's pretty much in line with what you'd expect from the market, I would guess.
Oh, look, it is. But I think when there's uncertainty in the market, anybody looking at a speculative development would perhaps bide their time. It could be a sign of confidence returning to the market that somebody's prepared to take it on to do that development. Yeah, it's a really good area though. So selling the finished product shouldn't be difficult.
Of course, the CoreLogic figures this latter part of last week and early this week have indicated that the Brisbane market is showing some signs of a little bit more, positive reaction from the consumers.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we've discussed previously, in Brisbane, there's a little bit of a tale of 2 markets. Investor stock units are still perhaps struggling a little bit with a very significant supply coming on the market. But those properties like this one, which sort of tick all of the boxes with location, views, potential, they're probably still in demand.
The top sale out of Adelaide, this one was right on the coast. In fact, you couldn't get much closer to the coast than this when we show you some of those shots inside. 33 Esplanade, Semaphore South, 1,640,000. Harcourt Smith, Kate Smith and Liz Miles. Selling this 4-bedder, 3-bathroom, 5-car on a good size block, 1,100 square metres. But have a look at those photos showing just how close we are to the coast, Kevin.
Oh, absolutely. Look, this is a very popular destination for certainly for day trippers. Beautiful beach. We're just over the reserve. Walking distance to an increasingly sort of trendy, perhaps even bohemian shopping street with plenty of coffee and cake opportunities. Much beloved of cyclists, I have to say.
Do you get there yourself, Kevin?
I do from time to time.
Yeah.
Now, it's actually very close to last week's highest sale from South Australia in Largs Bay, which is the next suburb to the north. Now, the median house price here is $641,000, which is 50% higher than the median for Adelaide. But obviously, not all of those properties have frontage like this one onto the beach.
Is that land size over 1,000 square metres fairly normal in that area, Kevin?
There are still some houses. This is obviously an older house. I think this is the first time it's sold for 30 years or so. There are some still there, and I think there is still value attached to. I don't believe this one's heritage listed, but those grand old houses. So there are still some there, although obviously some have been subdivided for much more modern beach frontage houses too.
And to our national capital in Canberra, a great family home. This is very reminiscent of so many houses that we've seen over the years. 880,000. This one is in O'Connor, which is only a couple of minutes from the city centre. 106 Scrivener Street. Impact Properties, Adrian Kuffner, selling this 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 1-car. So fairly original style. This one would have to be about location to the city, I would think, Kevin.
Oh, look, it is. It's right next to a nature reserve. It's one of those sort of green fingers that comes through the suburbs right the way to the heart of Canberra. This is located very close to a nature reserve, as you say. It's only about 4 kilometres from the ACT centre. And looking at the size of the site and then the improvements on it, you'd have to say somebody has an eye to release the potential of this site.
Yeah, without a doubt, Kevin. Kevin's been looking around for us too, and we've asked him to find some interesting properties, which he's certainly done for us this week. This interesting property, we're going to look at Flemington. It's an absolute classic. Had the same owners for about 3 decades, I believe. 31 Dover Street, Flemington. Kevin, this one sold at auction, $936,000, which was actually a touch above the guide price too.
That's right. The guide price was, I think, $825 to $850, so it sold a fair way above that price. It is a very unusual property. If you have a look at the layout, it's slightly unusual because it's clearly been converted from a previous sort of milk bar use. Now, it is a residential property, so the frontage is listed and can't be changed, which is why it has the traditional milk bar sort of frontage. Yep. But it is a purely residential property. So given that it is quite idiosyncratic, I think, again, the driver here will be location. Flemington is one of those suburbs that is highly sought after. The median house price is just over 900,000, so that clearly will be more traditional houses, but nonetheless, this sort of fits in at that sort of price.
Yeah, that storefront being heritage listed, Kevin, I wonder if it's undergone a rezoning, whether you could actually take it back to that, because I think a lot of those older milk bar type corner stores traditionally did have living quarters in the back, I think, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. So a component of this property would always have been residential, but obviously, I'm afraid I'm old enough to have done a valuation where supermarkets were new to the market, or out-of-town shopping centres were new to the market. So our retail habits have changed significantly since this was built. Many of these properties have simply become unviable, and certainly I've seen these around in many suburbs. Different authorities look at them in different ways. I would suspect now that it would probably be difficult to revert it back to a commercial use, having lost, if you like, its existing use rights. Yeah. Once they're extinguished, in many instances they are extinguished for good.
Yes, I've seen a few of these converted into office accommodation for solicitors, accountants, that type of thing, and they fit very well in that area, don't they? Where you don't need a lot of car parking. You've got, you don't have a lot of.
So you're absolutely right. If you had a property which is retail, one of the reasons it would be difficult to convert back is the impact on the local community with traffic concerns, and obviously they're a big feature of zoning.
A great report, Kevin. Thank you so much for your wonderful insight and all the research that you put into the show. We do appreciate it. Kevin Brogan from CoreLogic will be back with me again on Friday, and we'll have a look at the auction numbers coming up and what Kevin's thoughts are about where the market's headed. Kevin, thanks again for all your great work, my friend. Look forward to seeing you on Friday.
Looking forward to it. See you, Kevin.